Facebook page, which is the way he appears to have been communicating all afternoon, he rejects the army statement. He says it is a military coup.
Well, there you go. So it is, I mean...
It's amazing we're quoting Facebook, isn't it?
That's right. And there was another Facebook quote from a senior member of the Morsi's entourage who said this might be the last time I use the official Facebook page. That was earlier this afternoon. So I think, we're seeing via social media those concerns and indeed the results coming through. But just to show you the reaction to the events of the evening on social media, loads of live blog coverage, loads of live videos across various different social media, such as here with Vine. Those photos of fireworks and the celebrations obviously being picked up and being funneled through the social media across the board. This is a tweet pic by Sharif Kudus, who is an independent journalist based in Cairo, who speaks to a lot of the American media, for example. Anti-Morsi protesters cheering right outside pro-Morsi rally, with soldiers and APCs preventing them from getting close. So you do have, I suppose, a little hint there of the tensions that could emerge as people are celebrating. But of course, it's not everybody is happy with the developments of the evening.
We've seen a rival rallies going on in Cairo, haven't we? Because of course the Muslim Brotherhood does have a lot of supporters in Egypt, and one will worry what's going to happen now. What have they been saying on there?
Well, there has been a sense, I suppose, that they're not happy with things, how things have gone. There was one tweet earlier, if I could find it. I'm no fan of Morsi, but this is a way backwards, not forwards. Coups are not the solution. We know this through experience, and that's actually somebody looking from Latin America to the events that are going on. This is somebody who is a supporter of Morsi. It didn't have to end this way, he says, and he's been Iyad El Baghdadi. He's been tweeting quite a lot in the last number of days about the events that are going on. A couple of other reactions. This one coming from Turkey. Dear Egypt, or Misr as it's known in Arabic, I hope you don't regret it, and I also hope that you have a certain plan for the next step. Not as an army force, but a nation. So I suppose countries in the region looking towards the events, well, not necessarily in the region there, but elsewhere looking towards what's happening. This is a Tunisian national tweeting in French, saying that she has goose pimples, her throat is tightened. She's finding this very emotional, but it's difficult to say what will happen in the hours and weeks ahead.
I can tell you some news just coming into us. That interim administration that is taking over in Egypt, in that army transition plan, they can't say when presidential and parliamentary elections will take place. Armin Georgian, that could be worrying, couldn't it?
It's very interesting, the tweets that James is showing, because there's a lot of question marks in the region about what comes next, and that's exactly the problem. There are a lot of critics of these protests against Morsi say, it is actually quite a common sentiment, we're not in favour of Morsi particularly, but before you get rid of him, you have to really be sure about what you're doing. And, Baradei has shown no signs of wanting to take on the job of president in any case. The army can't remain in control. The army can't remain in control for that long, because remember when they tried it last time, they were the targets of the people's wrath. So that's not a solution. The head of the Constitutional Court, the Chief Justice, can't be Egypt's leader indefinitely either. So who's going to actually do it? Is it the Salafists? Is it going to be another? These things are not answered. It's just jubilation. It's, okay, we've got rid of him for now, but what happens next, no one really knows. And actually, have they really got rid of him? We'll have to see, because his supporters are not going to just take this lying down. And I hope that as our coverage progresses, we're going to get some more comments on what Muslim Brotherhood supporters are now planning to do.
I mean, what we're seeing in this very young democracy, Armin, is that they're really learning, aren't they, on the job, how to compromise, how you work a parliamentary democracy, how you bring everybody's views in, not just I'm in power and so you're out of it. It's something that's going to take many years. It's a cultural thing to a certain extent.
Well, they haven't been very successful at finding compromise so far. I mean, whose fault is that is another question. But if you look at how Morsi really came unstuck after winning that presidential election, it was the way he handled the constitution. And it was felt that he was excluding liberals and leftists and secular nationalists and so forth. And really, that was a sign of, if you are an opponent of Morsi, an inability to find compromise, or if you were to look at the sort of whole political culture more generally, you could say, well, it was a failure on all sides to come to a solution, to find a constitution that worked for everybody. So it's in that sense you're right. I mean, of course, it's very early days, but things are very polarized, and there hasn't been any consensus so far. And what the army is talking about tonight, what was it? The phrase they used, reconciliation initiative, or something to that effect. What does that mean when there hasn't been that reconciliation so far? And we saw that over the constitution. And what role for the Muslim Brotherhood? Are they going to want to take part in a national reconciliation process led by the army? I very strongly suspect the answer to that is no.
Okay, Arman, hold that thought. One political leader who was really pleased about this tonight was Mohammed El-Baradei, the Liberal opposition leader. Let's take a listen to his comments following that announcement by the army earlier.
The roadmap also calls out for a national reconciliation via a national reconciliation committee so that the people can renew with peace and tolerance. I hope that this roadmap will be a new starting point for the revolution of the 25th of January, during which the Egyptian people made so many sacrifices but was able to recover its freedom.
Baradei there, who in the last few days has become someone who's really representing those millions of protesters against Egypt, against Egypt's President Mohamed Morsi. Joining me is James Creedon, our media specialist. James, you've been keeping an eye on reaction to what's been going on all night.
That's right. We've been looking at some of the tweets coming in earlier, but just to mention some of the Egyptian blogs, because there has been criticism of how the events of the last few days are being covered in the Western media. Now, obviously, it's difficult to get a sense of what's happening on the ground when you're not in the country. But some of those criticisms are basically saying that there's a coup d'état discourse, that we're talking about a coup d'état, but actually when we're talking about an army coup, it's to not recognise the role of the people in bringing things to the point where they are now. People's agency, as one blogger, Jadalia, said, people's agency in shaping the political outcomes. And so that there is a sense that, we're just talking about a coup d'état as if it's like the end of a process. And indeed, who would have thought a year ago that we would be here now, just one year down the line. So as another blogger said, I think it's this blog here, this happened a year ago, it's happening again, and it's going to happen as many times as it takes to get it right. So that this shouldn't be presented as the end of a kind of an uprising of some sort or another. It's part of a process, and it might continue, and we might see more of these uprisings and more of these protests until such time as we have the system that works for us. So that's one of the sentiments.
Let's not forget how long the French Revolution took.
We hope for Egypt it doesn't go on that long.
Absolutely. All right, let's go to Cairo. Alexandra Buccianti, our correspondent, is there.